Were you favouring DC Comics or Marvel, or did you have a particular favourite as a kid?
I was always more of a Marvel kid, but I mean, except for Batman at DC. I loved Batman. I got to work on Batman last year, which was amazing because you're just all the stuff that's in your head is kind of stopping you from like just doing it.
Yeah.
And you're like, what would it be like if I'm like, oh no, I'm doing it. But growing up, it was definitely. I mean, the X-Men cartoon was on, and the Spider-Man cartoon was on. Those were kind of like my real entry points into comics.
Yeah.
So how did you spread your wings? How do you go from Ennis and then end up working with Marvel and on DC Comics? What's that process?
It's a long, boring story. So let me tell you. Essentially, I mean, I was studied in art college in Limerick for a few years, and I kind of like got outside the box of just comics, because that was my only real art interest.
Right.
Then afterwards, it's a series of basically doing portfolio tests and going to conventions in America and in the UK and just showing your stuff, and people going, "This is terrible," and telling you why. And just trying to get better. And over the course of years, you just get
What are
better
the common mistakes that maybe budding comic writers would make?
They want to make their epic graphic novel that's like 600 pages.
Okay.
Good luck with the 6 pages you're going to do of that. It's just so much work that it's like somebody wants to make a film and they'll film like 2 minutes and they're like,
Forget
this.
Yeah.
Thinking too big. But I mean, when it comes to drawing, there's a million things to do it wrong. There's a million ways to do it wrong. There's like loads of ways to do it right. But there's a saying. I think it applies to writing and drawing. Is you have to get like 1,000 bad words out, and you've got to get 1,000 bad drawings out of you before you can get to a place where you'll be doing good work.
So the stuff you ended up working on with Marvel, you did a Deadpool cover.
No, you kind of go through levels. I drew Deadpool for about a year. It was like a kind of an origin story. Then once you kind of get bigger at Marvel, you start doing covers. So now I kind of just do covers.
Okay.
And I don't draw the insides.
That's for the plebs.
Those losers. But it's harder. It's an awful lot more work. And it also means if I did it, that's a year commitment. Whereas a cover, I can do like covers to a series in a few weekends.
Wow. And I mean, is there a handful of guys like you around the globe that they say, okay, for this next issue, we want Shalvey to do this one? Or?
I'm not in the offices when they do it. Like, I like to think they're all standing around going, "What's Declan going to do?" I mean, well, look, Marvel publish hundreds of comics every month, and there's 100 artists drawing those books. There's more from Ireland in the last few years as well.
And do you stay here, or you go to Marvel HQ and get a swipe card and
I've been a couple of times
space?
Just to be like, hey, I should probably pop in. Yeah. And then you're going, savage. But you don't have to. I mean, I work from Dublin. There's another guy who works from Cork, another guy who works from Donegal.
So you draw everything. Do you draw it like on paper? Do you draw it digitally?
I personally, because I'm a pretentious artist, I'm all about doing it on paper.
Right.
But loads of people are doing it digitally now. I just I work on paper.
And
I
you scan it.
And my girlfriend, she's a colour. So we have basically a studio in Dublin where we make comics.
Who's your favourite character to draw?
Batman. Like just draw a circle for his head, 2 ears, done.
We can all give it a go.
I mean, I do love, because I love playing with shadow and mood and stuff, and like Batman's the character to do that.
Yeah, he is one of the darker characters of them all.
I love those dark ones, like Punisher and Deadpool, and the Wolverine, the kind of street level ones.
You must have loved the Dark Knight movies and all that, did you?
That was class. That was. I mean, I love all that stuff, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like unless it's terrible.
Yeah.
But
what as a comic artist, what film representation have you hated so far?
I mean, I don't really like those new. I didn't like the new Superman, and after that, I'm like, I'm at with the. I'm not with this. I like Marvel a lot, and I like DC. I just as a fan of stories, I kind of like the approach one company is making more than the other. But I'm not like, screw that company. I'm not. I'm not like one of those fans who hates one or the other.
Yeah.
I just want good stories, and I think I hated it was when people make films based on comics and they suck. One of my best examples, I think, is Road to Perdition, and that's based on a comic. History of Violence, that's based on a comic. There's some fantastic stuff. that's
Based
adapted
on it
from
and
graphic
adapted
novels.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, the superhero stuff. There's some great superhero stuff, but there's some awful stuff too.
Tell us about Savage City then, which is a comic book you're working on, set in and about Limerick City.
Yeah, it's Savage Town actually.
Savage Town, sorry.
It's oh, you're grand. Yeah, well, because I've been working at Marvel for ages, and then I started working doing a book at Image Comics, they published The Walking Dead. They do creator-owned comics, so you own whatever. It's your own creation.
Wow.
And I'm doing a book called Injection there, and that's been an amazing, empowering experience. Now, after a year or so, I'm like, well, it's kind of cool to be telling all these stories that are in America or set all over the world, but I mean, it would be class to see something kind of that feels authentically Irish,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm a big fan of crime stories. I know there's like loads of great artists in the country. So I asked Philip Barrett, who's from Donegal, if he'd be interested. So the two of us are making this kind of Limerick crime story set like at the turn of the, around the year 2000, and we're going to release it as a graphic novel later in the year.
Is it based on reality?
As I like to say, it's loosely based on reality,
Right.
Because those guys are getting out of jail. I mean, it was. Admittedly inspired by, but that stuff is interesting. But the more I kind of read about it, I mean, the more I can separate it from reality. That way, I can tell stories that aren't going to be just mired by.
Well, with the success of the Young Offenders movie, it would be amazing to think that you write this graphic novel, it becomes a roaring graphic novel success, and then Hollywood goes, "Let's make Savage Town."
Well, I will say, if it happened, savage. I got to stop using that word now in the book. It's. I wanted to tell a story, that was about Ireland. I liked, how savage. Depending on how you say it, means two different things.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, if something like that happened, that would be class because they'd have to make it in Limerick. Because the whole point of the story is it's not the most inventive crime story ever, but it's because of where it's set,
Right.
and how they talk. I'm trying to write it in the slang as best I can, so Americans are going to be, what the hell is...
Hey, what's a gal?
Yeah. Or a beer. But that would be amazing. I mean, and will it happen? Probably not. But the fact is, because, it's the difference between doing Marvel work and doing creator-owned work is, if that happened, I can say yes, or I can say no, or I could say, could it be a cartoon? Or having that autonomy is amazing.
Yeah. There was something kind of controversial that popped up during the week. I'd love to get your opinion on it. And it was the vice president of Marvel Comics said that Marvel's efforts to increase the number of women and minorities represented in their works have actually damaged the sales, which is a fairly brave thing to say.
With respect, that's not exactly what he said.
Right.
That's kind of what's kind of been the interpretation since. Basically, what he was saying was that the titles with more diverse characters, be it women or people of color, aren't selling as well. Which there is an element of truth to that. They're not to the monthly audience. What people don't kind of consider is the fact that those comics are collected in trade paperbacks like books. Those things are selling crazy.
Right.
In the context of, I've worked for Marvel, so I don't sound like a Marvel apologist or anything, because they can do better, and there should be more books without a doubt. But I think I'm trying to think. Like Squirrel Girl is a book now that does
That's
well.
been made into a
I heard
TV
yesterday.
show. Yeah.
They're doing everything, bloody hell. But I can't keep track. But that was a really off the wall book that came out last year. That was very un-Marvel like, very cartoony, very fun. Like not what Marvel generally made. It was weird, and it's all great. And I think maybe the sales for the issues are down, but the book is doing crazy. They even put out an extra graphic novel. I think with what Div Gabriel was saying at the time was at a retailer conference. And the problem is when you're dealing with an audience, you have one extreme of people who are 40 to 50-year-olds, and they just want to read the Spider-Man that they knew when they growing up. And you have another, and not extreme, that's perfectly fine, but they're angry if it's not what they want.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have another extreme of people who might want more diverse characters, and they want Marvel to be everything that it could be, but it's not quite there yet. And then they're going to hate on it too.
Yeah.
Those are the two extremes.
Right, and
within the middle, there's people who want to maybe read stories about Peter Parker Spider-Man and Miles Morales Spider-Man, or they want to see the female Thor book, or they want there's a diverse line within. I think there's always two extremes arguing with each other, and in between you've got a publisher who, at the end of the day, if a book sells, they're
have to
if it
make
makes
profit,
money, they're
They'll
all
do
for it.
Yeah,
Is there any character that you haven't had a chance yet to draw but would love to?
Daredevil.
Really?
I'm so close to drawing Daredevil one time, but I've gotten to do most. I've gotten to do Wolverine. I've gotten to do Punisher. All those kind of street level guys.
Yeah.
But Daredevil's the one that I'd love to do like a proper like 12 issue run on someday.
Yeah.
Someday.
Well, the best of luck with it. It's fascinating and great to see. Both my kids are mad into drawing, and this is all they do. They just draw these figures. So it's great to talk to you and see in real life you can do it. And a chap from Ennis as well, which is fantastic. When